Welcome to 4 Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer lives and careers on everything: countries, companies, couples, and careers. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and on this week's 4 Quarter Lives, I talk with Rick Robinson, the force behind AARP's Agetech Collaborative, an ecosystem linking startups, investors, and big companies to build what comes next for the longevity economy. We dig into what older adults actually want from tech, why this market is still misunderstood by many investors, and how AI, yes, including embodied AI, could help close caregiving gaps and combat isolation. It's a conversation about moving age tech from niche to mainstream with pragmatism, scale, and even heart. Welcome, Rick Robinson, to 4 Quarter Lives.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
My pleasure. Rick, I really want to talk to you. You joined AARP, I won't say what it used to be called, but it's now referred to mostly as AARP 7 years ago, to run its innovation lab. So I want to know what drew you to the role and how has it evolved into today's Agetech Collaborative?
Great question. Well, at the time, I was leading product for a company called Politico here in the US, and I was made aware of this opportunity to help run the innovation lab at AARP. It wasn't really something on my radar.
I bet that's quite a switch.
Yeah, it was a big switch. But a couple of things came to mind. One, not in this order, was the idea of being able to have kind of a greenfield to create products rapidly for a segment that I was pretty familiar with. I grew up in South Florida. Most of the people in my neighborhood were retirees. One of my early jobs in high school was basically a caregiver for people with Parkinson's. So I had some familiarity there. But more importantly, my mom had been diagnosed with dementia not too long before. And it just felt like, if there's something that I could do that could perhaps help in that area, it felt like the right time. So I took the leap and went over to AARP, quickly got involved in creating all kinds of early stage pilot programs and products, a variety of things, some digital, some hard goods, some of them for AARP proper. Some of them we tried to kind of spin out. And it was just, a whirlwind of experimentation. And one thing that I tried to bring to the organization was to eliminate innovation theater and actually have some outcomes.
What is innovation theater? There's a good term I haven't heard.
Well, innovation theater is the unfortunate outcome of, I would say, some, let's say, corporates who want to do innovation and they produce, let's say, prototypes that are exactly that, just simply prototypes, and never really go anywhere and don't get executive support and are not launched. In some cases, not even intended to be launched. There's something to look good that perhaps the CEO can sort of flash around and they go nowhere. And in my opinion, that's in some ways can be aspirational for the organization, but ultimately a waste of time. So didn't want to do theater, wanted to actually have an impact. During COVID, which happened not too long after I joined, we as a team started to pivot to, instead of having a handful of people on my team, each of whom would develop a couple of products to pilot each year, we thought, because we had started working with startups to co-create, we thought, what if we could bring in startups and actually utilize their products for our market? And rather than producing a half a dozen products a year in the innovation lab, some of which would see the light of day, instead we could have scores of products that we could be affiliated with that are produced by startups. So we thought, okay, well, how are we going to do this? And we started with kind of an accelerator program. I had been part of a couple of accelerators with my startups in the past. So I was pretty familiar with how to run an accelerator and how not to do it. So we set about creating an accelerator program that we thought was very high touch and provided present value and things that are very transactional, like useful for that startup to really engage with the 50 plus audience, whether it's tuning their marketing, their product, getting better research. AARP obviously has 60 plus years of experience in this space. So we were able to
give my international readers just a little hint of what AARP is and why it's such an extraordinarily powerful base for the kind of innovation lab you've created.
Yeah, good point. AARP has been around over 60 years, and it is multiple things. It is a nonprofit with a sort of commercial arm and a foundation. And what we do is represent over 150 million Americans over 50 in the US. We have 37 million members. We have offices in every state in the US. We have an army of volunteers who do all kinds of things on the street level. We have a very strong presence on the Hill, on Capitol Hill, to defend the rights of folks over 50. So we do a lot of advocacy work. We do a lot of education, anti-fraud protection. We have two of the world's most distributed magazine, AARP, the magazine, and the Bulletin.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, most people won't know that.
Most people will not know that.
Yeah,
will not know that. That is true. So we are advocacy, we're education, we're content, and now we're trying to get involved in forward-thinking products and innovative solutions through startups. So this accelerator program is our effort now to find the best startups all over the world. And we have this very lengthy, I shouldn't say lengthy, we have a very sort of arduous process because we have, fortunately, hundreds of startups who want to join.
Yep.
And these are startups in the health tech space, the fintech space, the wellness space, all kinds of areas now, of course, using AI, AR, VR, and so on. We could talk more about that later. But an accelerator program was what we devised first. And then we thought, okay, if we can bring startups through our program and have them better prepared to meet the market, what else can we do? We started investing in them. Small investments, but for early stage companies, that's very helpful.
Yep.
It also gives us some skin in the game, so to speak. And then we thought, well, once they kind of graduate from this accelerator program, what more can we do? Well, there's not really an ecosystem of age tech out there, meaning a community that's brought together of all of the different players we think need to be involved in something called an age tech community. So we came up with the term Agetech Collaborative. And the pieces of that are, of course, the accelerator program, but also an online community where we're recruiting investors, big enterprises, testbed organizations, and of course, all of our startups. And the idea is to bring them all together in this online community and hope for an alchemy to happen where investors find startups. Startups can connect with investors. Big enterprises who are trying to crack the 50 plus space in a modern way don't know how. They can tap into startups in the collaborative and find them all on our platform. So we started with zero 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And we've got over 650 companies now in the collaborative. So we're really kind of excited by that progress. But, we still have ways to go to get to critical mass.
What do you think is critical mass? Where do we...
that's... Yeah, I tell my...
What's your timeline?
I tell my team 1,000 companies.
1,000. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, we want to get to a point where the online platform, the community, is self-sustaining. And right now we have a lot of activity. You may have heard if you've ever tried to be part of an online community or build one. The cold start problem is very, very big problem, going from zero to something. And as the Agetech Collaborative is sort of a separate entity from AARP, we of course are part of AARP, but we have not been able to, say, tap into the membership yet. We're more of a B2B experience, like all of the entities in the Agetech Collaborative are businesses and startups. So, I want to get to a point where this community is wholly vibrant and activity is happening completely independent of us. We have account managers right now, I do on my team, who are, extremely good at, regularly reaching out to those in the collaborative, say, how can we help you? What do you need? Who do you need to be connected to?
Yep.
Did you know this event was coming up? All those sorts of things. And I like to get to a point where, those people are certainly needed, but can do their role in a different way. And the community is just simply buzzing and the flywheel is going on its own.
Interconnecting and self-referencing.
Yeah. Yep.
So it sounds like it must be an amazing thing to watch grow. I think it's hugely necessary right now. It's really fun to be at the beginning of these, I can imagine. Can you share a couple of standout innovations, ventures that have emerged through the collaborative that are your babies that you might be particularly passionate or excited about?
Given how high profile you are, I know some of our startups may listen to this. I'm not going to pull out,
we can do a separate podcast.
I'm certainly happy to talk about some. We've got over, I don't know what it is now, maybe almost 250 startups in the collaborative. So there's a lot. But I can tell you, one you might have heard of is Trust and Will. They're a company, they've been with us a few years, and they're essentially the simplest way to get a will or a trust done really without a lawyer. And it's kind of been breakthrough. And this is not necessarily a quote unquote high-tech solution, but it is high-tech in that they've taken technology and applied it in a way that's made it really simple for anybody to get a will done and turned it into not a womp-womp kind of negative experience, but something that is everybody needs to do and make it very simple to do.
Is that American focused or can is that global?
You know what? Good question. I do not know if it is available outside the U.S., but that's something
legislation and legal ramifications of different.
I can tell you though, knowing Cody, who's the CEO, as ambitious as they are, they're not looking at just continental United States.
Cool.
So another company called Amicus Brain, really interesting, super smart PhDs behind it. They're doing kind of groundbreaking AI that are kind of advisors for caregivers of people with dementia. In the U.S. and frankly around the world, there is a caregiver crisis.
There is
just not enough of them. We tend to say that to everybody, you are either going to be a caregiver or you are a caregiver. A lot of people, particularly younger, middle-aged, don't, I'm not going to, why would it be? All it takes is for a parent to have a fall or that sort of thing. And suddenly, in a way, you're a family caregiver. Most people are not prepared for that. And it is a whirlwind. There's horror stories among people who are just thrown into this and are just overwhelmed very quickly. So we know this is a giant space. And Amicus Brain is just one of the companies that is looking at ways to really help caregivers deal with this on multiple dimensions, practical as well as sort of mental support. Another company kind of in that space, they're looking a little bit more at CCRCs and long-term care living facilities is OnScreen. They have a product called Joy AI, I believe they call it. And Joy, again, is an AI companion that pops up on your TV. So if you're in a senior living community, you can have this simple device connected to your TV and you can have this companion you can talk to. And it can be connected to the facility. And if you need help, you can communicate there or you can just have a conversation. And we're seeing obviously a lot of AI going into this space in terms of companionship, but also support and technical support and so on. Another one that's really interesting that's doing quite well is called Presidio. They are a digital vault that secures records and a variety of other things. It really gives you peace of mind. And it makes it really simple for people to take everything that's important in their world and put it in the vault and not worry about it. And you can give access to your children or vice versa. So it's always accessible. And they're doing really well. On the really kind of cool factor front, there's a company called Skip. And they've got an exoskeleton clothing called, I think it's called Mogo. And essentially you put these pants on and they make
you can do anything.
You get superpowers.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God. Really, give me a pair.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
What does it do exactly? How does it do it?
You may have heard of exoskeleton technology, but basically It gives you, think of it like,
all I've heard about is Agnes at MIT Lab that makes
that's different.
That turns you into an old person. So you've
the
got
reverse.
something that's going to turn us into a healthy person.
Yeah, sort of. I think of it like a little bit, you might get this reference, the Bionic Man, but maybe more current is, if you've ever ridden an e-bike versus a regular bike.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that experience when you first get on and you start to pedal and you're like, holy moly, it's half as hard. I'm going twice as fast.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. And it's particularly good for people who have certain kinds of issues that would inhibit their mobility.
Yeah.
And then, one other that's really kind of out there is Xander glasses. And this is captions for the real world. Put these glasses on, and in both screens, you can see, as you're talking, I see everything you're saying written to me in captions in real time. And I won't go into the deep tech, but you all may have heard of some of the stuff coming out from Meta.
Yeah.
But this tech is a little different in both screens.
Yeah.
And it's not sending stuff to the cloud. I believe it's all local. So there's a privacy factor there, and there's a speed factor. So
and a translation factor, I imagine. You can do it in any language you want. Wow, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So I like to find companies who are taking really leading edge tech. We've done a lot previously in VR.
Yep.
We worked with a startup to build a whole VR platform and online experience, or VR experience, where people could actually go in there and with their avatar, talk to their grandchildren who could be in there thousands of miles away.
I'm waiting for this one. This is the one I really want.
Yeah. Well, it puts you in the context of a home.
Yep.
And it's called Alcove. And the company who's now running it, we sold it to. We actually built it with them and sold it. They are including, of course, an AI avatar in there that you can communicate with and walk around with and so on. So it really, in many ways, provides a companion for people who otherwise wouldn't have one. And for those who are experiencing social isolation, which frankly is millions of people around the world, this isn't necessarily a solution. I'm not saying put VR goggles on and suddenly...
the ethicists will come after you then.
Yeah, exactly. But it is something that people report as giving them joy. And there is some research to indicate that it does address some of the negative factors of social isolation. And, there are companies who are using AR, augmented reality. And then, of course, lots of companies are using AI. And what I try to do is encourage/find companies who are taking this leading edge technology and either kind of making it invisible in the product and or making it really accessible. So it's not necessarily leading with, oh, cool tech, let's apply it. It's really cool tech. How can we make this solve problems for people?
Solve problems, exactly. Yeah. The big problems, absolutely.
Yeah. So and also take away the fear factor, from people who might otherwise be fearful of, AI, and instead show the incredible convenience that it provides.
Yep. So wills, caregiving, security, physical boosts through exoskeleton pants and glasses. I can't wait. And I will look deeper into connecting with grandchildren through VR. That sounds like something. It all sounds a little bit like this wonderful movie that I really like called Marjorie Prime.
Oh, you told me, yeah.
You see AI kind of humans come and accompany you that are your former relatives who come back to life. But it's
you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned grandchildren in particular. We've got another company called Zoog, and
Zoog, how do you spell that?
Zoog. Okay. And really, what they do.
We'll list all of these companies you've spoken about in the show notes.
Oh, great! Yeah, they're at getzoog.com. But a lot of grandparents and grandchildren communicate with each other today with either over Zoom or over just video calls or their phone or what have you. And Zoog allows you to do that. But with AR, they can interface in between and put up animations and storybooks and all kinds of, put kind of like
funny rabbit ears on the grandparents.
Rabbit ears on you and making gestures that people can't see. But it turns an otherwise conversation that's just looking at each other and creates all kinds of story opportunities and animations and so on in that conversation. And, people
So
love
you can read a bedtime story to
Yeah.
your kids in a much, much more real kind of way.
Well put.
That would be really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so extraordinarily exciting. I can think of all kinds of startups that are going to be connecting with you after this session. You've seen hundreds of startups now in this space. And maybe you've already looked into this, what are the big gaps or pain points that still aren't being addressed? Like, what are the big opportunities or hard nuts to crack for older adults and their families?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's huge opportunity in retrofitting homes with technology to allow people to feel secure and their children to feel secure that they can stay there for as long as they want.
Yeah, I've heard the statistic that only 3% of American homes are universal design that are ready.
Yeah, that's kind of why I refer to retrofitting.
Yeah.
We do talk to builders about new construction, about how to make them so they're future-proof for older adults. But the goal is, everybody wants to stay. I shouldn't say everybody. Most people want to stay in their home, don't want to necessarily move out, or at least want to push out that date longer. And caregivers can help if you can afford them, or if you've got family who's able to do that. That doesn't cover a majority of the audience. And so I've always said the only solution, or the primary solution here, is technology.
Yeah.
So a constellation of products inside of a home that can all communicate with each other and can do everything from detect your gait as you're walking down the hall and note if it changes from day to day, detect sleeping patterns using the bathroom. We have smart toilets in the Agetech Collaborative, believe it or not, that can measure all kinds of elements of your health.
What is can't resist. I want to know, what's a smart toilet going to warn of? I mean, does it actually analyze urine and feces for chemicals?
Yeah, there are smart toilets that analyze what gets deposited in the toilet and all kinds of health factors and readings that can come from that.
Yeah.
But we also have a smart toilet company that is a toilet seat, and that can measure all kinds of metrics just by you, frankly, sitting there.
As you fall on it, and as you can no longer lower yourself gracefully down.
There's that too. So the whole idea is, with privacy in mind, making everything that you do from the moment you wake up, not even wake up, the moment you fall asleep to the moment you go to bed at night, everything you do, you can do it with confidence because you'll be reminded, if you need to be reminded with technology, to take your medication. And if not, someone will be alerted. You'll be notified.
Any anomaly or change in pattern will be immediately flagged. Yeah.
Right. So there's 100 points that you could think of throughout your day that could be monitored and could be important data points. So, we've got companies in the collaborative who are point solutions, from kind of radar detecting movement, some that are more holistic. But I think there's still opportunity. The space is so big and the need is so large, and people have different kinds of preferences for the let's say, the kind of monitoring. Some don't want a camera.
Yeah.
There is technology that can be pointed at you that doesn't actually interpret you as an image, turns you into a stick figure. So technology that can disappear into the experience, but also do what I have always called provide ambient awareness.
Ambient awareness. I love it. You get great terms, Rick. Ambient awareness.
It's a mouthful, but
I love it.
The idea, of course, is that ambient, that it sort of disappears into the home, but has total awareness of you. And importantly, I think it should give you, the person living in the home, the ability to say, look at the dashboard or get alerts yourself. Yeah. So it's not like you're a captive and everything goes to your caregiver or to your doctor. You can
look at it too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the ambient part also is, let's say you have any kind of issue. You can do this today with AI. You can simply call out, I'm feeling dizzy. And, a voice will come back to you and start engaging with you.
Yeah.
That technology basically exists today. It's just a matter of the infrastructure and implementation in a home. So I think that's one big area, one huge area with multiple
Now, Rick, I got to stop you because I can imagine half my listeners are jumping up and down on all kinds of, wait a minute, takeover. You're pretty bullish on embodied AI, robots as future caregivers. You've got to come up with the explanation to those who are skeptical, very worried about ethics, replacing humans with machines. What do you say? I'm sure you've engaged on that topic a million times.
Broadly speaking, people should have some skepticism and maybe I wouldn't say fear, but concern over
vigilance. We should all be vigilant.
Be vigilant about privacy. And, to the degree that people care about that. Some people are like, look, I want the convenience. I don't care if the data is being collected and potentially could be hacked and people could know that I went to the bathroom 4 times today. But that's not a position that obviously I would stake for. We lead with privacy and making sure that the person using the technology has a level of control over both the data and what is happening with the technology and what it's collecting. At the same time, I will say, and we can talk about, embodied AI and that kind of thing later, but I will say that many technologies that I've been involved in developing or working with going back to the early 1990s have started out as kind of frightening, scary, weird. I'm not going to use that. And today they're not only accepted, but they're must-haves.
Yeah.
And this is everything from things like presence. We used to call it at America Online. This was the ability for you to see when your friends are online. Before that was launched, there was pushback inside among I believe it was our marketing team or maybe others who are like, we can't show people when other people are online. Well, of course, that became, that at the time,
standard
that was
became
standard procedure. And then location in the early aughts, the ability for you to find people, find your friends, your family, see where they are on a map. Initially, that was kind of rejected. And then,
my kids still wonder about that a little bit.
I'm sure people are still like, if mom's following, they're like, that's
it's mom again.
I get that. But there's so many examples that I can give over the years.
You've noted that older adults are actually a lot savvier and more tech ready than people assume. And I imagine that's going to keep increasing as the generations go through. How's that changing the reaction to the kind of products and innovations you're talking about?
I would say people are much more open to them, which is great because I would say even though I wasn't here, I would imagine, let's say 20 years ago, let's say the generation who were in their, let's say 60, weren't as acclimated to modern technology, digital technology, online technology, and therefore were probably much more reticent.
Yep.
But one thing I tend to point out, somewhat with gritted teeth, Facebook's mobile application, I think, has done a lot for older adults, getting them acclimated to using online and mobile technology. If this is the one primary place that they can see pictures of their children and grandchildren and communicate with them, people are going to figure out how to use it. And if you figure out how to use Facebook's app, it's not a leap to figure out how to use Uber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And once you use those products, you realize, this isn't so scary. This isn't so complex.
It solves a lot. It solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, it solves problems. It creates a lot of convenience. And so when we approach older adults and talking to them about new products and having them test out products, I think even in the time that I've been here, the 7 years I've been here, I've seen a bit of a change in terms of willingness to embrace new technology. And we're now seeing it with AI. Older adults are very curious. Now, of course, I'm generalizing, but what we've seen are very curious about AI. And AARP has many programs that help train people on, how to use ChatGPT and what it's good for and so on. And we found people are embracing it,
I've seen that the latest research is actually showing that AI is being used far more for personal things
Yes.
than for professional ones, which must help enormously everything that you're doing because it's more.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I expect as we start to actually embark on my team building products again, which
Yep.
is something that we're looking to do, I expect that probably instead of getting people saying, ooh, this is, say, AI tool is too creepy or what have you, I'm not going to be surprised if I'm hearing people saying, well, why can't you make it do this and also do that?
Yep.
And challenging us to do more,
Yep.
frankly.
I think so too.
Which I look forward to because
it's going to be all about those grandkids. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Tell me, Rick, what role then for big companies from Nestle, Microsoft, Google, what do they need to play in making this longevity really part of our mainstream innovation agenda? It still feels a little bit, I think you'd agree, like a niche.
Yeah. What we found in talking with larger enterprises is some of them haven't paid attention.
Yeah,
paid
it's
close
not on
enough
the
attention.
agenda yet at all,
Yeah.
I find.
They haven't paid attention to the demographics. And demographics tell the story, as you know.
Absolutely.
To be blunt, where the money is shifting to this segment of the population very rapidly. I think before 2035, might be sooner. There's going to be more people over 65 than under 18 in the US, at least. And it's even more pronounced in other parts of the world.
There are more dogs than children in the UK.
Yeah, that's shocking. I have not heard that one. So you get the point. So when we talk to some of these companies, they haven't really grokked it necessarily.
Yep.
Maybe intellectually they understand, but how do we frankly take advantage of that? And
I spend a lot of my time with these leadership teams, and
there
it
you go.
is quite astonishing how much they're not connecting the dots. I agree. They
Yeah.
kind of vaguely read about demographics in the media and then don't connect it to
the dot.
Impact the future of their businesses.
Right. So I want them to exploit this market. And I use the word exploit in a way that means they get benefit. Corporations develop products that are more appropriate and services that are more appropriate and more desired by today's audience over 50. And of course, it's not a monolith. There's different segments, but generally speaking, addressing the needs of people 50 and over and their caregivers, because it's only beneficial to them, the corporations,
Yep.
and ultimately the products being in market are beneficial to the 50 plus. So it's kind of an easy argument. It's just not, it's difficult to get a large entity to kind of move in that direction. What moves them, of course, is revenue opportunity. So we do work to try to...
Is there something kind of profoundly unsexy about age? I mean, is there do you think underlying it is some fear of death of the older folk on the leadership teams of these organizations? It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, in the US anyway, and I would argue probably many parts of the world, there is youth culture, and that's where marketing dollars go. That's where a lot of companies focus.
Well, they think Gen Z is the future consumer.
Right.
How do you prove to them that actually it's the 50 plus who are their future consumer?
Well, a couple of things. There's a phrase, you want to skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. So if you think about Gen Z, it's not long before they're going to be over 50. And
they're going to be daunted to hear that.
their needs are going to change, for simple as their hearing is going to become deprecated. And maybe they don't want to wear a hearing aid, but they want something cool like a Hero Bowl. That's a one simple example. So it's not, in many ways, it's not sexy, but we're trying to turn that around with the way we present ourselves at the Agetech Collaborative. If you go to CES, Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January every year, and you approach our booth, if our name wasn't above it, you would have no idea with all of the leading edge tech and activations and the stage that we have presenting with these great startup founders presenting, you would never know necessarily that it's targeted at this population. And we get that all the time. People walking up, young people, frankly, young founders and so on coming up thinking, what the heck is this? Wait, you're doing this for this population? And I'll tell you a quick story. These ahas are happening all over the place. I talk to investors who say kind of what you said. This is not, in so many words, it's not a sexy space. This population is dying. Why would I invest in a dying population? And
we're not dying. That's the whole thing.
Well, exactly. We're living much longer.
We are definitely not dying.
Yeah. And the light bulb is when said investor's mother has an issue and the investor is like, what? There's not a product to meet that, problem? Then suddenly it's a full alarm fire. And
well, that happened to you a little bit, right?
Yeah. So, I'm seeing, and this particular investor I'm talking about was an investor in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
So I'm expecting this to happen more and more.
Yep.
And the serious big investors my pitch to them is this space, and then we have all kinds of data, this space is growing incredibly fast. They have a lot of money to spend. They have a lot of desires. They want convenience. They have high taste and demands, and they're not being met. On the other side,
it's pretty low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. On the other side, you got a lot of entrepreneurs who are really eager to build the next big thing, but they're going after saturated markets. Why not say to those entrepreneurs, hey, turn that product and with some twist of the dial, that could be marketed to a different audience that is much more receptive. Yeah. And so once investors sort of get that message that, hey, this market could be much more fruitful, we're hoping that they're going to chase after entrepreneurs in this space much more aggressively. So we're trying to take it from both angles, go after entrepreneurs, after the investors, and as you pointed out, the big enterprises to get them to understand that this is a big space. And here we can help you address the market. And that's part of what the collaborative is about. You join the collaborative, we have all kinds of data and research, and of course, everybody in the collaborative to help you meet this market better.
It sounds like an easy call to action. Join the collaborative. And let me end, Rick, on just a personal note. After 7 years building this collaboration between these different stakeholders and so many years with all these startups and innovation, what's most surprised or changed you all about this whole topic? What are you going to leave us with?
I think what has surprised me over the past 7 years is the contrast between, I would say, the public perception of older adults and the reality, which is they are very tech savvy. They have a lot of desire for new products that meet all kinds of needs in a way that's much more respectful and more modern than anything before it. And so I hear that over and over again. And I really didn't expect to hear that coming in. And I'm hearing that more and more. So it just says to me, there's just so much opportunity.
Rick, thank you for developing it, exploiting it in your world, and getting everybody to wake up to this extraordinary longevity opportunity moment that we're lucky enough to be part of the tipping point on.
Exactly. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Won't be the last time. So see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Rick. For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.